We all probably heard about the cognitive intellectual debate whether omnipotent God can create a stone so heavy that it can lift. And that, upon reading of the book The Darwin's God, led me to think whether omnipotent God can create a species he can't no longer support, or that the species that no longer supports him. Generally, it's not that Darwin came up with evolution out of the vacuum. He just went on some islands, observed birds for a while, and was like, oh my god, I discovered evolution, that's amazing, guys, we need to change everything we know. It more tipped a coin and then forced people to find new ways in order to explain the problem of evil that existed way before that. So humans did basically what they were designed to do, that is recognize patterns and put things into boxes, label them, and derive some consequences for this particular thing in relation to what actually bothered them at the time. So now I will try, as the primary concept, say how humans have a wonderful capability of bossing higher power around. Because what I discovered is that actually majority of examples given in the book, at least, about evolution are not exactly like the proof for evolution is not that evolution is the thing and therefore God is false. It's rather, hey, we have a bunch of data and, well, we no longer think that God is actually the good explanation of it, so evolution. The problem of explanation of evil had many solutions. Some thinkers thought that it may not be necessarily the evil thing, it may just actually serve for us to change our perspective and appreciate the things that are good. Some people assumed that whenever something malicious happened to a person, it was because of their fault. Many people invoke the principle of free will and explain that, well, it's not actually the God that makes anything bad, it's rather humans being free and awful that cause suffering in the world. But an important distinction must be made between like moral evil and natural evil, because while moral evil is exactly what can be explained by humans having their free will and God just respecting that he gave it to them, what distinguishes it from the laws of nature is that it is the human who does that and can become somehow autonomously judged as an agent here. While when we have hurricanes and wildfires, mass murder, and what Charles Darwin didn't seem to suffer enough of, the massive loss of pollen that gets wasted, it is the natural evil, and well, humans cannot explain that. This in turn led to shifting God so far away that he stopped seeming useful at all. Because if he started it and left everything in the hands of accidental processes, why would we have any reason to believe that he was there in the first place? And if he is not accountable for numerous things, why would we assume that he is accountable for anything else? Perhaps nothing is in his hands anymore. That is the reason of the paradox, because if he is so benevolent, he couldn't have created this world. And if he did, then what happened? Like, when did it go wrong? Quick caveat, evolution doesn't necessarily need to lead to atheism. It just denies creationism. Majority of these arguments, if you look at them, relate more to how humans saw God and therefore denied him access to the creation, rather than we have some concept of God and let's change the concept so that it fits evidence, so we can put in two things together. For some reason, humans had a very strong need to believe that he has bad intentions. which is interesting because many religions depict their gods in rather unfavorable fashion, but for whatever reason, the incongruity between the image and perception of God and what apparently his creation was like led to necessity of alternative beliefs, and that pushed forward scientific evolution, although methodology of some of these concepts was not as good as we would demand nowadays. And it's not important to me this much, at least here, to show how much humans manage to discover or to hail their diligence with which they strive for explanation. It's rather, even when having a god that was supposed to have all the empowering properties, they denied him the right to do evil. I feel as if humans made humongous effort to push their view, like that God has his hands bound and was denied the rights to his creation because it was out of his nature to do it. Moreover, the judgmental nature of this perusal astounds me. Like, whatever he would do was wrong for humans and not godly-like enough for them. So essentially, everything started to be turned against God. One of the arguments is that there are so many various different species, and if the creation was instantaneous, then, well, the species would be more homogeneous. And, well, we could argue that, well, who forbade God to be creative? Another thing is that, well, for evolution were founded on the idea of change. Microevolution led to macroevolution, so small gradual changes in the function of certain cells or in the building of the wings mean that it wasn't a ready-made product. It rather evolved into something that is now recognizable, or was recognizable at the time, but then changed into something else because particular organs or parts of the body changed their function. And this also was considered to be contrary to what God would have done, because ostensibly they said that, well, he wouldn't have popped up so often. And I believe that this is a view held by someone who never had to face infinity, because imagine you have infinite amount of time on your hands and you literally grind for just 6 days and then abandon everything just because you can. Repeated refinement would mean that the previous concept was a mistake, and again humans denied God the ability to make a mistake because it would be so ungodly of him. So instead of being guided, humans, instead of being guided by what they thought God could have been, guided by what God might have been, basing on the evidence and changing their own perception of God, they decided that what they came up first was a holy grail and could not be amended by no means. So let's instead flip the world on its head and assume that this is the case actually. So imagine there is a God for a second. Imagine there's a God who created apes that then, with or without his help, evolved. And he decided to step in once in a while because he was bored. He had infinity on his hand, so he could do basically anything he wanted. He's God. He comes, he refines species, a little bit of refinement of the beak here, some more feathers there, change of the amount of fingers in one palm. Right. He comes in, he repairs stuff, and then he hears that humans actually, because he repairs stuff, make him, deny him the copyrights for your creation. How frustrating would that be if that was true? And then we have another argument, which is basically, oh yeah, so God must really like beetles if he created so many of them. Well, and what's wrong with liking beetles? similar trend shows itself through anthropological study of various beings flung in the middle of between the puny and the divine. Although frightful they are still constrained. For example, vampires are constrained by garlic. They can be interred in some way that doesn't allow them to strike back. They also cannot enter unless they are invited to. And escaping from other creatures is rewarded by powers, or they have limitations. So humans ostensibly construct the ideas of beings that are superior to them, so that these superior beings are not that superior after all, and they only serve as a function, like a placeholder for something that is superior, but they make sure it will be in some way constrained or providing a prize after defeat, so they get something from it. And what people get from this particular being, and how many beings are actually constrained, and to what extent, depends highly on the climate, because our belief systems are founded by the way in which environment comes into play with cognitive function of a human. So if the weather is predictable, we have a lot of crops, and everything goes well, there's no reason for us to think that the god cannot do anything. While when the weather is unpredictable, or the weather is harsh and cruel, it's more rational to construct an image of a god that is as well quite unfavorable. I'm not sure if you can see my face. Oh, it would have been so much better to record this way. This made me wonder how much of what we know is actually the framework of language through which reality is tried to be both understood and constructed. Perhaps, like, categories humans come up with have no contingency with absolute truths, and if any of these truths exist actually, all we can do is construct systems that then can be reviewed and revived, peer-reviewed and replicated until certain conclusions are reached, but this is a long, painstaking process, and many people still manage to get too rigid in their points of view until the paradigm shifts and the truth is revealed anew. But this makes me feel like we have little probability that what we actually think will be considered true in 100 years. Especially now when more people can do science, more people have access to sources, and science can be constructed, the construction of science precipitated, let alone whether it is reliable. But it's a topic for another discussion. And, well, in a world where nothing can be trusted and everything is filtered through the mind, which makes everything subjective or intersubjective at best, any theorem can be doubted, but we still need frameworks. Anyway, I feel like humans constructed gods in order to make someone account for things they encountered. How scary would it be to have no one responsible for it comes about, and nobody to summon in the event of adversity? And at times I wonder whether modern day scientific proof or regarding quantum mechanics, neurological foundations of consciousness, and expansion of moral circle of dignity will ever reach the point at which most ridiculous, at least now, the most ridiculous views that are trifled and looked down on will become the truth, and we will actually say, hey, this is actually the case. Oh, sorry, well, actually geocentrism is not the case anymore, guys, I'm sorry. Well, all science, at a certain point in human history, all intellectual elites believed that the earth was the center of the universe. And sometimes God was usually just put forward as an explanation that was rather unproductive, but at least served as a placeholder until something more verifiable comes around, or something that is an incentive for further discussion. Because if we say that God accounts for everything, then case dismissed. Okay, I guess there is the door we cannot breach, because according at least to some frameworks, we cannot recognize God, and if we recognize something as God, then it isn't God because we can't recognize him. It might be a little bit Hegelian of me to assume the growth and history of humanity resembles a lot the growth of human child. But like, perhaps the time Nietzsche explained that God was dead and humanity killed him but didn't even know that was the case, humanity actually entered the phase of adolescence, and the authority presented needed to be rejected in order to be for humanity to become something separate and transgress what they were, and to simply grow. While saying this, I don't mean to imply that there actually is any God who would be a father or a mother or just any paternal figure. Instead, I wish to express how maturation of ideas and growth of a species is way ahead of humans, who sometimes assume that they know everything, and that's why they know nothing, or assume that they know nothing, and that makes them feel so smug and smart that they actually feel that there is nothing else more to discover. So, these are my thoughts. I don't know what you think about them. I tried to be as coherent as possible, and let me know what you think in the comments, because I think reviving various views we have around about the world and how it's constructed, what grounds it works on, is important for us to understand how it came to be. If you want to know more about evolution, tell me. I read the book and I can summarize it. So yeah, I'm curious what you think about it.